the election integrity issues that arose back in 2020 were public information. I mean, it was things where the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court was making, the governor was making declarations that changed the time, the place, the method of elections. The state Supreme Court majority was upholding those, and our Attorney General at that time refused to hold their feet to the fire with the law, because the law is that only the state legislature can determine the time, the place, and the method of elections. And so I had significant concerns, and that was a question. I mean, that's what we were asked to do. I mean, that is our constitutional requirement in certifying these results. It's never a question, do you agree with them or not? It is the process. Did the process follow the law? That's what we're asked to, I guess, to judge, to make a decision on in terms of certifying ballots. And I would tell you back in 2020, and I don't usually go back and revisit that, it broke my heart, because I'm a Keystone stater, right? Pennsylvania through and through. And the fact that the evidence was so clear, and you didn't have to dig very deep because it was reported. I read it in newspapers. I heard it. I heard these violations talked about in they weren't talked about as violations, but they were reported in various news media. I think I'm not seeing a significant amount. I do have a concern with something our Department of State just did at putting out that the Pennsylvania Department of State instructing our Board of Elections in our counties that they are not to, on ballots that are cast by U.S. citizens or reported U.S. citizens in foreign countries. And this is something I've been involved in for a long time, improving that process. I've got a son. He's been serving in the Army longer than I've been in Congress. He's still in there. He's a senior non-commissioned officer in Texas. He has voted numerous times with overseas ballots. And so the issue that just happened by the Secretary of State instructing the County Board of Elections that they are not to determine whether, when these ballots come in, whether these people are actually citizens. I don't have a problem with our military ballots or, quite frankly, their family members that are using this process. We know that they're citizens. The issue I have is diluting their ballot, because we know that foreign interests, and like I said, my son has cast numerous ballots from overseas, from war zones. But we know that there's foreign entities that have always had seems like an interest in our elections. I mean, we know it's been reported that Iran had a hit contract on the Republican candidate, Donald Trump. And so the question is, do they, the question they ask, is there a risk of that some foreign entity will figure out how to use this process? Because it's a fairly simple request. You can register and apply for your ballot with one application. That we wanted to make it simple for our military and quite frankly for also our expatriates. People that that are not associated with the military that live overseas. These folks are going to be able to provide their citizenship. I have a friend that from Clinton County that works in Africa. He's registered in Clinton County. I know he'll be voting using this process, and I know that he's a U.S. citizen. In fact, he used to work for the Short Line Railroad out of this area when he was back here for a short period of time. But what about the foreign entities? And so not exercising your duty to check for citizenship for all these, that's number one. It can dilute the actual votes of our American heroes that are in our military that are voting. Number two, why would you do that? Because you're just creating this question that may come up. And I think people need to have confidence in that their ballot counts.
Yeah.
And so why would we ever put ourselves in a position of doing something which I think is pretty stupid and not legal, of instructing the Board of Commissioners not just to make sure that these folks are registered, that they're there, as opposed to just counting that ballot. I think it creates controversy, actually, and Lord, we've had enough of that when it's come to elections in the past, and I think we ought to do everything we can to avoid that.
If I can do just a quick
Please.
follow-up. So, the bottom line is, in what's expected to be a very, very close election,
Yeah.
You still have some concerns about mail-in ballots?
No, I don't have a concern with mail-in ballots. I've been promoting mail-in ballots for, I was just at Howard's Pumpkin Chunkin' and asking people if they're registered to vote. And without exception, everybody said, I'm registered to vote and I already voted. And I said, great job. So I don't have problems with mail-in ballots. But the new issue, and I'm part of a lawsuit actually, to require the state to actually direct the Board of Elections to, just check and make sure, just don't blindly, just because these folks received a ballot overseas, let's just make sure they're citizens, they're actually U.S. citizens. That's just overseas ballots, the overseas ones.
Okay.
And we call those overseas ballots. They're not considered the mail-in ballots.